Okay, everybody, I'm back. I had to connect my charger to my camera because my battery was low here. But again, when they encounter a nightmare for the first time, even though I had not finished the story mode until yesterday, and I'm pretty sure this goes for anybody that's played story mode on Soul Calibur 5. When you find out that Dumas or whatever his name is actually a nightmare in disguise, it really is a huge twist. But then the twists just keep coming because it's not Patroclus. It's not Patroclus that fights him. It's Pyrrha. Pyrrha is the one you got to play as you fight against him. And for some odd reason, even though you may lose once in the 3 out of 5 rounds, once or twice, you're able to beat Nightmare on the first try, the first official match. Like I say, out of the 3 out of the 5 rounds, that you are given, he's easier to beat the first time around. But there's a reason for that, because the reason is it brings out the Malfestite inside Pyrrha, and it basically causes her brother to sort of reject her, sort of like, oh my God, what is going on? Why is this happening? And run off. And then again, this is where the situation starts to really come into play, to where he starts getting later on manipulated by the spirit of Soulcalibur, by the entity and spirit of Soulcalibur, in the form of his mom. I'll get into that in a second. While she's also been manipulated and being used by the Malfested and the spirit and entity of Soul Edge. So it's a really unique situation there, and there's kind of a twist at the end in case some of you haven't played yet. But let's just say it involves going back through time. Let's just say it that way. It involves the Edge Master, and it involves going back through time. So it's a really unique concept. Now, again though, as far as the story goes, I thought it was okay. I thought it was a good enough story, well balanced. Now the presentation of the story, Angry Joe, and I'm sure a lot of others have talked about this, they say that most of the stories told through these still images, these sort of magna, if you will, like images, audiobook-like situation, or audio picture book situation, magna, if you will. And this goes back to what I was talking about in the first video, where I talked about it being a mixed bag. Well, the mixed bag, the way it's a mixed bag to me is the fact that, some people like Joe will say that it is kind of amateurish and lazy, and that they should have used the CGI for most of the scenes. And I get that. I totally understand it, and I agree with it. I agree that if all that story mode would have been told throughout those magnificent, and I truly mean one of the best, if not the best, CGI cutscenes in a game in a long time, if they would have been told through that, the entire story would have been told through that, there is no doubt in my mind that this game, when it came to Angry Joe, would have gotten a higher ranking. It would have gotten a higher ranking. There's no doubt about that. Now, however, getting back to the mixed bag kind of situation, the way I see it, is it's a mixed bag, especially when it comes to story mode. It's a mixed bag of the fact that, well, it's not just a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, sort of a combination bag, if you will. Basically, it combines Magna with CGI anime, if you will, or CGI anime. Because you can tell the characters are sort of CGI'd in an anime-like style. But when you take a look at the steals, if you will, which are presented as far as I'm concerned in Magna fashion, it gives you that. It kind of gives you that, like I say, that mixed bag. If you're a fan of Magna in anime, you could actually read the story, follow the story as if you're listening to an audio manga book or whatever. And later on, it gives you the CGI. Now, the reason I think there are certain moments are CGI'd is because they're very potent moments. They're very, the certain scenes and moments. The reason certain scenes and moments are CGI'd is because they're very, very potent. They're very important. They have, they're the main portions of the story that you can't just watch and, steal images. You have to see physically happen. You have to see them physically say and do the things they're doing. That's why the CGI is used in this, mostly for as far as I'm concerned, the very potent, very prominent, and very climactic moments throughout the story. As far as the CGI goes, Joe said that there were some, and I'm sure anybody else has said this, but he said basically there were far and few in between. Well, the way I look at it is like in the early to early mid portion, basically from the early to mid portion of the game, you kind of get a mixture of CGI and mostly still images. But as you progress, as you progress throughout the game and towards the end, you get less still images, and you still get your still images, but you get less of them, and you get more CGI. So it kind of balances itself out towards the end. It balances itself out, and you get more CGI, and it's so beautifully done, like I mentioned before. It's so breathtakingly done. If I had an HDMI cable, which, let me just put it this way, you have to place, as I'm sure a lot of you have to get an HDMI cable for whatever system you have. You have to hook it up to your HD TV, whether it's in your room or your family room or whatever. And you have to play this game, or at least watch the scenes, the CGI scenes, on your HD television, because they come off beautifully. They are just tremendous. And again, like I said, during the early to mid portions, let's just say let's just put it this way, about 45 to maybe, I'll say about 45 to 50% of it at the beginning, and then towards the middle are mostly still images. They're mostly still images. You do, like I said, like Joe mentioned, you do get some CGI moments here and there. But like I said, when you progress later throughout the game, you get less still images, you get more CGI. But I do agree that had they done the entire story in CGI, it would have made a little more sense. So that to me is pretty cool. That to me is pretty cool. As far as the characters involved in the story, again, Joe does say there are certain characters in the story that are just there for a few moments. Well, he doesn't say this, but a lot of people have said this, that are just there for a few moments, and then they leave because they have no real significance to the story anymore. Like you got this little Asian girl and the guy and the guy with the bow, and they're the ones that Patroclus has to find, because they have what he needs to kind of complete Soul Edge, if you will. Well, not Soul Edge, but Soulcalibur, and prove he's worthy of wielding sword. And that is another unique thing about it. I like how they kind of test him before he becomes Alpha Patroclus, before he becomes like his super form, if you will. I like how they have the new character Zoel, and they have a character from the past that used to be Nightmare, Siegfried, kind of test him out a little bit to see if he's worthy of that sword. And it's really, again, it's a really unique twist, right? It's really a unique portion of the story you have to play and watch and read on your own. But to me, these two characters, can't think of their names right now, you know, they may not show up as much, if you will, like they probably did in the previous games, but they at least are here because they have to play a part in some ways. Now, as far I heard something. Oh, I did. Oh, it's a fire engine. I know what that was about. But anyway, I don't want to give much away from as far as the story goes, but let me just say it is a unique story, and again, like I say, you get more CGI. You get your share of CGI towards the end, more so than you do with the still images. So it kind of balances itself out in some way. As far as the characters go, they are all there. Every character except the one you have to do with DLC are all there. Now, I mentioned that Sophie, Patropius' and Pyrrha's mother, does appear in some way. She appears basically courtesy of this entity and the spirit known as Soul Edge. And her name is Amyris, or something like that. She's sort of like a goddess, sort of like a Greek goddess, who's using, basically, as we find out, and later on, Patropius finds out, is using him to destroy the Malfestite, destroy Soul Edge, and possibly destroy his sister. So basically, in some form or another, in some way, Sophie does appear, but she appears under a different name and with a different look. Now, the one thing about Sophie's new reincarnation, if you will, Imaris, is that her Edgemaster and Keelik, are basically the characters that can use a variety, I should say, are the characters that can use a variety, if you will, of weapon styles from a lot of the characters. Now, Amyris, if you will, or Amaris, whatever her name is, the only thing about her is she can use only the styles, the fighting styles, of all the female characters. Well, Edgemaster and Keelik, I think Edgemaster can use them all, and I think Keelik is only limited to the male characters. I'm not really sure. I have to look again. So that's a unique concept if you wanted to choose a fighter and kind of try to throw your opponent off a little bit, because they wouldn't know what style you're going to have, and surprisingly you wouldn't know what style you're going to have yet until you play the character. But yeah, you got all the characters, new and old, there, so it's really cool. You do have to get one character through DLC, and really that's about when it comes to characters. The one thing I will say, and this even has bugged me, and I'm sure a lot of other people with previous fighting games, is why in the world do you have to always have 2 slots for the same character? 2 different slots. I mean, it's like in the WWE games, like this year's and last year's, you have, like for this year, you have 2 different slots on the current roster for John Cena of now and Word Life version of John Cena. Just like with The Undertaker, you have Undertaker now on the roster. I can understand Undertaker of Attitude Era. That's cool. But then you have, instead of adding this other part to the Attitude Era version, you have Ministry of Darkness Undertaker in DLC. And they've done this before, and it makes me wonder, why can't they just add the character as another option to the already established